scientists. And I was talking to Richard C. Hoagland about this, and he's going to be speaking at this conference October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Rio Rico. And I said, you know, this Jet Propulsion Laboratory person said, yeah, there are structures on Mars that prove that there's an ancient ET civilization that existed there, and there's an ancient extraterrestrial connection to Earth. And I said, well, why would you guys suppress that? He said, not for the reasons you think. And I said, well, what are they? He said, because if that was known, it would collapse the fundamentalist orthodox belief systems of every religion on Earth. Mm-hmm. To which I said, well, good, it's time for childhood's end here, you know. And he said, no, you don't understand the power of those interests. So there is a sort of a weird sort of misdirected religious basis for the secrecy, as well as a scientific and technological basis, because you really can't believe that we rode around on dinosaurs with saddles 6,000 years ago. Okay, if you find out this information that goes back thousands and millions of years dealing with extraterrestrial civilizations involved with the Earth and Mars and what have you. So this kind of worldview, unfortunately, flies in the face of a lot of powerful interests who want to keep the current myth going. And that's another problem that has to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they own the media, and so all the people sitting at home, all they hear about is that there's no free energy available, it's never going to happen, you're going to stay slaves forever, and there's going to be a horrible cataclysm in 2012, and it's going to kill us all.
Yeah, well, you know, what's interesting about 2012, you know, in fact, I was asked recently by a politician in Washington about that, and I said, you know what, the Mayan 2012, that was actually the ending of one calendar, but it was also marking the opening of a new era, and it was actually a time of celebration. So, it's, you know, you can look at it from the point of view, yes, there's one era that's going to be rolled up and finished, so if you're attached to that, it is the end of the world, but there's another one that's going to be unfurled, and that's the celebration. So both are going on at the same time as sort of parallel events, because for one era to come in, the other one has to sort of recede. And this is one of the problems, is that people take only the sort of eschatological, eschatology is the study of how the world's going to end, sort of view on this, and it's an incorrect view. Yes, and it's sort of like the REM song that goes, you know, it's the end of the world as we know it, but I feel fine. Mm-hmm. And actually, I was giving a talk once in some place on the West Coast, and there were like 2,000 people in the audience, and I said that, and everyone started singing that song, because it's the end of one whole way of living on the planet that's about division and separation and destruction, but it's the opening of another cycle of unity and universal peace and free energy and advanced civilizations and interstellar travel, so, and higher states of consciousness. And I think that it depends on where you want to come down on the side of that and what side of that coin you want to look at. And I prefer to look at what's being created, not what's about to collapse.
Religion is definitely one of their primary means of control. What is your take on the ancient astronauts that came? You know, the Sumerian tablets, the fact that we were, well, the theory that we were created, genetically engineered by these beings.
Well, I don't know if we were genetically engineered. It could be that the gap, the missing link in modern Homo sapiens, may have been an augmentation of other life forms that were already here. But people have to also remember that I think literally there were continents like Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu. I think there were entire civilizations that predate any, that go back millions and millions of years, not 10,000 or 50,000 years, that have existed on Earth. The Earth's been around for billions of years. It's had life on it for hundreds of millions. So I think that there's a very, in fact, I'll tell you a little gem here. There's a top secret scientist that I've worked with very closely, and Dr. Loader and Dr. Bravo and I have met with him. He's been at my home, who does a lot of work for all the three-letter agencies, and he has not infrequently given artifacts from these ancient civilizations to study them and figure out what they were used for and how they work. Some of them are ancient extraterrestrial devices, but some of them are ancient Earth-based ones, the ones that were from other civilizations for which we have almost no trace. Now, this is kept very secret because it would upset, again, everything from archaeology to history to sort of fundamentalist Orthodox religion and what have you. But this man is no quack, and he is absolutely a real guy, and he's currently involved in these sort of projects, and he's shared with me and my team a lot of detailed information that I've had from other people. So yes, I think there have been ancient times where there have been contact, and there's some question whether the Vimanas that are talked about in the Vedas might have been extraterrestrial vehicles, and there are other evidences. I mean, there are ancient cave drawings that are thousands of years old that show things that look just like a flying disc or a UFO that have been documented and carbon dated and proven to be thousands of years old. So I don't think we're dealing with anything new. I think what's new is that we're at a point in our civilization and our conscious evolution where we can understand this in terms of consciousness, but also in terms of science, and make anew the world with this information.
We're going to skip this break real quick. I know we only have you for an hour, so I have one more question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The Norway spirals, your take on that?
I was told about that a week before it happened by two people in the intelligence community. And it was man-made, and it was a display of sort of scalar weapon systems, and it was done over Norway when Obama was getting the Nobel Peace Prize to send a message, a shot across the bow, and that's what the Norway spiral was.
Thank you.
Okay,
for addressing that.
We've had countless debates on this broadcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we know exactly what it was.
Okay, good.
Do they have wormhole technology though?
Well, not particularly. It's really a hyperdimensional electronic system that created that, and it can be weaponized and has been, but it wasn't extraterrestrial. It was very man-made. And one of the things people have to understand is that 60 years and trillions of dollars in a black budget going into this stuff, you got some pretty amazing stuff that's sitting there, and that's what it's a risk and a promise. And the risk is that it can be misused. The promise is that it shows the way to a whole new way of living on this planet if we can use it wisely.
Well, that's what gathered the extraterrestrials. That's what gathered them around, was the whole fact that we created nuclear weapons and we were using them. Isn't that what got them all riled up in the first place?
Absolutely. In fact, a British intelligence agent told me in the 90s that, in fact, when we started detonating nuclear weapons, that we kicked a hornet's nest. Basically, they knew that a big red flag went over the earth that said, look, this civilization now has the ability to destroy an entire world, and at the same time is beginning to go into space. Because remember, from 45 to 55, 60 is when we started going into space, along with the development of these thermonuclear weapons. First the atomic bomb, and then of course, the hydrogen bomb. And I think that what people have to understand is that this caused huge concern in the cosmic order, because not only could we destroy this beautiful planet, but we could be a threat to other planets. And I think that this is what people don't understand. When I met at the Pentagon with senior brass, I said, look, you guys are always looking at what's a threat to us. I think you have to stand in the shoes of these extraterrestrial civilizations and see that we've killed 200 million of our own people in the last 100 years, and now we have the ability to destroy entire worlds, and that we have not learned the lessons we need to learn. And that this is something of, I think, enormous concern to these interstellar civilizations. They're obviously not hostile or violent, or they would have cleaned our clock already. But I think they are concerned about our potential for destruction and hostility that we have not gotten under control yet.
Well, I think they're more concerned with the fact that our spiritual and emotional and mental maturity is not lining up with our technological maturity.
I say that all the time. You're 100% correct that the technological capabilities have outstripped our social and spiritual development, and that imbalance has to be fixed, because otherwise it's very dangerous.
Well, what is the solution, though? You have the people who are in control who don't have the higher consciousness that is needed, and then you have the ones who are very, I hate to say brainwashed, but that's the only word that I can think of, by religion, and they want to go back to the old world and, their old values.
The Dark Ages.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that what you have to understand is 25%, the Noack Sciences Group did a study back in the 90s, and they found that at least 25% of Americans are cultural creatives who know about this good future and are progressive thinking. So I don't see this as a lost cause at all. And I'll say one other thing, in this group that has been called Majestic, or Majestic 12, that keeps a lot of these things secret. When I first briefed CIA Director Woolsey on this in 93, 70% of them were opposed to what I was recommending. Now 70% are in favor.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so there's a third of them, though, who are violent and dangerous, who hate what we're doing. And, you can look at the Internet. I've been called every name in the book. But the point is that and I don't care. I mean, I'm not running for the mayor of UFO Town or anything else. But the point is that these people really have been evolving, and I don't talk about this publicly that much. I spend a lot of time with people who are tied in to these secret projects, and they are learning and they are evolving along. The question is, it's a power struggle. I lived in Israel for 3 years, where a very small percentage of the population can terrorize the entire population, and so that's true of any subculture. If you look at this group, it's not homogenous at all. So people tend to demonize the whole lot of them. In reality, there are a lot of them who really do want to let this evolve, go forward. But then you got the hardliners, people like Dick Cheney, and who just absolutely don't want this out there and are ruthless. So I think that what has to happen is that there has to be a turning point where the good people have the courage to stand down the mad dogs, okay? And it's a little bit like with the challenge we faced with Adolf Hitler. We let this madman get out of control for too long. And who's going to stand up to these ruthless people? So there's this concept, I call it the Shambhala warrior, the spirit warrior, where no matter what the threat to your life or your safety or your what have you, that you have to stand up to this kind of ignorance and dangerous behavior. And I think that's what the real challenge is as Obama used on the Sunday before his inauguration. I was there when U2 was playing April 4th about Martin Luther King being killed, and I was there with my family on the mall, and on the big jumbotrons were this quote from Robert Kennedy, where he talked about the indispensable quality being moral courage. More than brilliant intelligence, more than anything, is this moral courage. And that's what we really need to have. And that is a spiritual quality, to have the courage to do the difficult things, even if they're extremely powerful and at times ruthless people who would want to stop you. And I think that's what is really the challenge. And it's easy for armchair people to talk about this, but I deal with folks, for example, there's a senior scientist that I met with in Washington recently who was told very flat out that if he talked about some of this stuff publicly, they would kill him, his wife, his children, and his grandchildren. And his wife was with him, nodding, and said, "Yep, that's absolutely true.
Oh my
this is
God,
absolutely true." So, and I've been threatened, and I've said, "Well, I'm not going to give in to threats and intimidation, and it does wear you down. But it's like the U2 song, let the bastards wear you down. You just have to keep on moving forward."
Absolutely,
I agree.
We can't let them affect any way that we think. I mean, I think that's the whole
absolutely
that's the
not.
whole goal.
And luckily for me, when I died when I was 17, I had this near-death experience. I learned there was no death. There's no reason to be afraid. And I had the head of Army Intelligence threaten me once. I said, "Go ahead and take your best shot. I'll be more trouble to you on the other side than I am here." So,
that's true.
And he actually knew what I was talking about and believed it. So you kind of have to you have to have this sense of yourself spiritually, where you're not going to be intimidated by the kind of childish antics that go on. But unfortunately, many people in political life, corporate life, many wealthy people I know, they're sort of scared.
They're afraid they're going to get Kennedied.
They want to hold on to what they have, and you know what? That's the quickest way to go right down the drain. Just clinging to what you've got. You've got to really kind of let go of all that and move forward and do what you think is right. And that is the more difficult thing. And I, by no means, am any angel. I've got all kinds of flaws. But one thing I will say is that the people on my team that I work with, we go the distance no matter what. And I think that's the courage that has to be evinced. And that's what we're trying to model for folks who are in not only this majestic group that run the secret programs, but also for people in political life and scientific circles. And people like Dr. Loder and Dr. Bravo and other people on my team have spent a lot of time, and their colleagues have really made note of the fact that they are standing tall, even though they've been hit with all kinds of barbs of ridicule and put downs and what have you.
I have a couple of questions from the chat room, if you don't mind, just maybe 5 or 10 more minutes. Sure. If time travel is real, and can we use this interdimensional technology? Well, have they implemented this interdimensional technology for time travel?
There is a project, that was called Operation Looking Glass, and another one called Operation Red Light. where they did do a lot of work with altering time and space. Now, the kind of science fiction concept of time travel is not quite like that, although advanced extraterrestrial civilizations have done that.